Hello and welcome back to Goswick Lane. We are here with a special guest today. This is my older and uglier brother. You can see the proof is in the pudding. It's on camera. We're here.
Well, most people say we look a lot alike, so you take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, I gotta basically look at my brother when I look in the mirror every day. So, give him a hard time, and it's just reciprocating back.
Yep.
To looking at my daggum face in the mirror. So Brandon and I are in business partnerships all over the place, really, but most of our partnerships revolve around some type of real estate.
Yeah.
And mostly it's short term in the short term industry. And so what Brandon and I work on, or what Brandon kind of focuses on, is the automations. Well, there's three words that have been very important to us recently. It's three words I'm talking about?
So optimization, automation, and outsourcing.
Okay.
And
where did we get that from?
So there's a guy named Ari Meisel, A-R-I, and then Meisel, M-E-I-S-E-L. I had come across some of his stuff in one of my businesses, listening to knowledge on a concept that we teach in one of our financial education businesses, and I'm like, what he said just made a ton of sense in the phase of life that we were in, business-wise.
I remember reading, is it Tim Ferriss, 4-Hour Work Week?
Yep.
I remember reading that book, and that's a great book if you haven't read it. But there's some practical advice, but it's mostly like overview of like insight on.
And that book is 20 hours long.
If you listen to it, it's 20 hours long.
It's a long
you don't
book.
Speed it up.
Yeah.
And so you kind of found Ari Meisel from through that funnel of Tim Ferriss, maybe,
somehow,
right?
I think the Tim Ferriss book got brought up and it somehow connected to Ari, but I think I'd already heard Ari speak on a podcast I listen to often. And then I'm like, ding, 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 you make connections in whatever phase of life you're in. And I went back and listened to his podcast. I'm like, that is the guy.
Okay. Yeah.
So I start diving in. So then I pull up The Art of Less Doing, which is the first book I think he wrote.
Okay.
And that book's only about 4 hours on Audible.
Yeah, awesome.
And so I'd already listened to half of Ferriss's book, and I heard it put that this is essentially a modern day version of that, but in a quarter of the time.
Also, I feel like it's more applicable.
I agree.
It gives some very practical tips on how to start that, optimize, automate, and outsource.
Yeah. So when the very short version is as I dove into that and started listening to it, so the way Shane and I operate is pretty much I consume information voraciously.
Yeah.
It's not the most endearing quality always because I don't stop.
Yeah, you're geared towards education.
Correct. I want to understand something enough, and then now we're gearing towards, okay, now that we have this information, what does it go into to be, for lack of a better term, to get the most juice out of the squeeze?
Yeah.
Is really,
how can we apply this to what we're doing, or how can you apply it to what you're doing in your main business, and then also how can we apply it to what we're doing together in real estate or short-term rentals?
So Shane, if you're good with it, let's break down optimization. And what does that really mean?
Yeah.
What it means is that we only have 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
First of all.
Oh, all right. So one thing when it comes down to time that we've both been trying to reframe our mindsets on is quit saying you do not have time to do something. There's two ways that we kind of
go ahead.
heard Ari talk about. Okay, reframe that. I'll say one.
Yeah, go ahead.
The initial one was Brandon, I would say that, and Brandon was doing his education thing and inserting all this information into his brain. And then he transfers it to me by saying, Shane, quit saying you don't have time. Mm-hmm. Say I didn't prioritize that, or I haven't prioritized it yet, or maybe I'm not going to prioritize it. And the other one we heard the other day from Ari, it's in his book.
Yeah, it's in his book, but so I'm a private client of ours.
Okay.
So I have one-to-one access to him anytime. He only communicates with any client asynchronously.
Oh, it wasn't in his book.
No, this came straight from his.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm going to let you say the phrase because I don't remember exactly what you're referring to. I think I know.
Yeah, he said, be honest with yourself and say, if you have something that you might say, I don't have time for that, say, it's just not that important to me.
Yeah.
Be honest, because there's this idea of, and I've been talking about this a lot recently, of cognitive dissonance. Is if we say we believe something and we do something different, or we say we don't believe something and we do something opposite, it just creates this havoc in our brain. So in your brain, when you're saying you don't have time for something, you are saying that it's not as important as you may think it needs to be.
Right. So you first have to go backwards to move forward in this conversation, I think, for each individual, because it depends on who's listening to this, and it may go straight over somebody's head and it may fully resonate with someone else. So if you back up, I was a middle school principal and educator for 15 years, teacher, coach, and when you're in a position where somebody else is dictating your schedule, you don't get the choice of saying, listen, bub, that's not a priority. I'm not going to do it.
If one of your superiors says,
correct,
this is what you need to do, then it is a priority.
It's somebody else requiring you to
That's right.
handle your priorities.
Yeah.
And they change often if you have superiors. So I think that first has to be clearly discussed. So now Shane and I do not have a boss, which is glorious. And I liked a lot of bosses I had.
Yeah.
So we now have to become better at how do we prioritize our time. So my other business partner, Nate, we early on would often say, I don't have enough time. And we had a mentor say, before I ever met Ari, no, you haven't made it a priority.
Yeah.
But what that does for you and for I and for whoever we're interacting with business relationship wise, because I think there's a personal side too, that's a different conversation, is that nobody wonders what you're thinking. So I'll give a practical example. Today I had a few calls for another business of mine. I don't like my whole day to be consumed with calls because it drags me down. So like I pick a day or two that I typically take them. I have to be flexible because some of my clients have different schedules than I do. So I'm talking to the client and I say, no, I get a text from somebody that I think very highly of, a young kid. And he's trying to launch a new course. And he's got copy that he's written that he asked me to review and just give my feedback. And I say, okay, when do you need this back by? I would have never asked that years ago.
Yeah, you might not have.
So I said, when do you need it back? And he laughed and he said, today.
Yeah.
But he's an entrepreneur too.
Yeah.
And I'm quasi-mentoring him.
Okay.
And he said, I understand if you can't, because I threw this on you last minute. I said, I tell you what, I can't get it to you today, guaranteed.
Yeah.
But I can prioritize having it to you first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And he says, excellent. Then he goes, that even if you can't read it all, this is what I'm looking for getting insight on. Okay. Well, that's going to take 10 minutes.
Yeah. Being diligent with your time and not just, I got in a mode for a while there as a business owner, putting out fires. And putting out fires, there's all kinds of chaos that happens when a fire happens. Firstly, there are not many actual fires in your business.
No.
And this comes from Ari Mazel as well. The only fires in your business should be like somebody got hurt or somebody had a death in the family, and that's not really a fire, but things that could be catastrophic.
A full-fledged emergency.
Right. Not like, hey, this client needed something and we didn't get it to them last week. That's not a fire. That's just lack of preparation.
Correct. And that's the point that optimization brings in. So the most cumbersome piece of this process so far has been slowing down to optimize anything that we do. And this is a daily work in progress. It's intertwined with everything we're doing.
Yeah.
Because our bodies, our minds, the culture we live in America, slowing down seems like I am impeding my ability to be successful.
Slow down to speed up.
Yep.
Give me an example of that.
I'm going to use you.
Okay, good. Yeah.
I've
got a lot of bad examples.
Well, I do too.
Bad good ones.
So there's something that Shane's been needing to do. It doesn't matter what it is, but it's something that he knows will be very beneficial for him. This is not me saying you have to do it, Shane. This is like, I did it. He's heard all the benefits of it. He's seen my journey for 3 months doing it.
Yeah.
But it's monotonous. It's going to require him to not be scattered and thinking about anything else. And it's he hadn't done it yet.
Yeah, haven't done it.
But here's the difference. He knows he wants to get it done, and it bothers him enough because he brings it up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an important thing. It's just to give you a base level idea of what that is. It's called an ultimate KPI. It's basically figuring out the things that you do every day and what of that list are unnecessary, what doesn't fill your cup, what doesn't energize you, and the things you enjoy doing and the things that propel your business or your life forward the most. And I haven't done it because when I think of sitting down and maybe spending 2 or 3 hours doing one task, I feel like I'd rather you just set me on fire.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like this mental battle of like, I know I need to do that, but I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Yep. So that comes from optimizing. So a lot of times business owners, now a little background, I've only been an entrepreneur for about 5 years. Before then I was just a W-2 employee. Nothing wrong with that at all. But I did not think about multiple pieces moving at once and trying to make them connect to solve problems, create opportunities, those kind of things. Shane's been an entrepreneur pretty much his whole life. So the optimization part is the most, it is the linchpin to being able to automate and outsource. So practically, again, when I started my ultimate KPI, it was literally, these are the 20 things I do a day on average. And that could be anywhere from working out, reading the Bible, taking the kids to school.
All the things.
All the things. And most of the time, about 20 things consistently happen, okay? And then it was which of those 20, which 16 do you want to not have to do daily? So that doesn't mean that they don't get done.
Yeah.
Because they still have to be done. It now means, is it optimized enough that it then can be automated, if it can be, and a lot of things can be. If it can be partially or completely automated, that just means if this happens, then that happens. Mm-hmm. And that's normally computer-based, which is not human behavior related, which means that it normally gets done consistently better. Yeah. And then if you need somebody overseeing it from there, that's the outsourcing piece.
Yeah.
So the whole basis of this is based off the Pareto principle.
What is the Pareto principle?
Pareto principle is simply that in anything you look at, 20% and 80% roughly is occurring of something. So this is my favorite example.
Okay.
I believe in tithing. The debate of how you tithe is a whole nother conversation, or why.
You believe in giving back to the church or God's people to use for his glory.
Yep. If you were to get to see the books of every church, 20% of the people on average, 15 to 30, but 20 as a baseline, tithe 80% of the money that comes into the church. And you can apply that, and you can break that down. 20% of that 20%, tithe 80%.
Yeah.
And you can do it again.
Yes.
And so that's relevant for anything that we do. So what Ari really helps you understand, and this all came about because he had a medical issue that he could only physically handle working 30 minutes a day until he got it under control.
Ooh,
out of nowhere.
Okay, so this is a good example. You guys like to go on vacation? Mm-hmm. Everybody likes to go on vacation.
Yep.
The most productive you are in your job is the week before vacation. I think that's been proven.
Yeah. Why?
You have a limited amount of time to get a lot of stuff done, so you maximize every minute of what you have to do. You'll work harder in expectation of that reward, not having to worry about that stuff while you're on vacation.
You know what that law is called?
Not Murphy.
Close.
No.
Murphy is where something bad happens.
Yeah.
Which kind of goes together.
Yeah.
Parkinson's law.
What is the definition of
one
Parkinson's law?
piece of Parkinson's law is that the work gets done in the time expansion you allow. Perfect example. Tied to vacation. But otherwise, if I tell Shane I need this by 30 days from today.
Yeah, I'm going to get it to you 30 days from today.
He's probably going to do it the 29th day at almost midnight.
Yeah.
So I get it on the 30th day. Typically.
Yeah, writing a paper for school.
There you go.
Most of those happen, they come down to the wire. And actually, your brain works better. I'm not saying procrastination is a great thing. I'm saying prioritization is better. But your brain works better on that crunch because you know and you force your brain to lock it in, focus.
Yeah.
And I've got 2 hours to finish this paper. That's all I've got.
Yeah,
Give 100% to it.
And it's the same. The Pareto principle can come right into this without going too deep. Yeah, 20% of you may get a 30-day window and do it on the first 3 days.
Yeah.
The other 80% don't,
Yeah.
typically.
Yeah.
So it's all about recognizing that prioritization, not only, it's not like this. Jocko Willink, one of the baddest Navy SEALs ever, says discipline is freedom. And it took me a long time, and I'm still relearning this daily. Discipline is freedom because now I'm telling my day how it's going to happen to me.
That's right.
Instead of it happening and me adjusting to all these fires.
You're telling you're
fires.
you're instructing your day on how it's going to go versus outside influences telling your day how it's going to go.
That's right.
If you don't plan your day, somebody or something else will plan your day.
Yeah, let's give a practical example right now. Shane and I are working on a real estate project. A dear friend of ours is going to be the builder.
Yeah.
And we love sitting down and having lunch.
Yeah.
Like it's the blessing of being an entrepreneur is you can prioritize your schedule.
We love sitting down and having lunch, not for tied to business reasons, but because of diving in other people's lives.
Yeah, seeing how they're doing.
Right.
Seeing, and many times we prioritize that.
Yeah.
And one of our kind of unwritten motives for what we do is to be able to pour into people with no time restraints. But we also are very busy today with a lot of prioritized things on the schedule. So there are other asynchronous ways you can get and receive information that doesn't require a scheduled event.
Yeah, so to be practical, two of those are Voxer. That's like a mobile walkie-talkie for your iPhone or Android or whatever kind of phone you have, or Marco Polo. Really, the only difference of the two of those is one, you can see their faces they're talking, and one is more like a walkie-talkie. So either one of those offer asynchronous communication to where you can communicate at your best time. If your best time is 10:30 in the morning and you line out those communications at 10:30, but whoever you're sending them to, their best time may be 1 o'clock in the morning. And they receive that at 1 o'clock and they reply at 1 o'clock. Nobody's holding you to the fire, which goes back to not having fires and optimizing.
That's right.
So that when you send a message, you don't need something back within 15 minutes.
That's right, because maybe you're working on a project that you've already launched for Q4 of 2022, and you know that everybody, because you've prioritized, knows their role and where their cup's filled, and they're working in that. So as a leader, I'm not checking on them. If they send me a message asynchronously and say, hey, Brandon, I need this piece of info that only you have. Well, I know I've got till December 31st, but I'm so excited that's the only piece they need from me.
Right.
And I'm not having to check in or double check. I'm going to get that to them pretty quick.
Yeah.
Because the project is related to everybody's success on the project.
Yeah, I think that makes a difference is if you're tied to people and your success is tied in with their success, it changes your your motives and your timelines. I want to go back to something you said earlier about I've always been an entrepreneur. That is true. That's just how my brain it's always worked. It's always functioned that way. However, I've not always been an optimized entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And that really didn't happen until you started your entrepreneurial journey. I was just pretty much running in circles.
Yeah.
My entire entrepreneur career being too much inside the business and not allowing myself enough breathing room to get outside, to slow down, to speed up, to optimize, to automate, all those things.
Yeah.
I didn't realize the importance of it.
I think, Shane and I don't shy away from being believers, and I think this is just seeing God's testimony work through our relationship, really, and his will for us. But I start twitching if I don't know what the plan is. Now, I am not anywhere close. The deal with optimizing is that the layers of how well you can be optimized never stop.
Mm-hmm.
It's like an onion. It just keeps unfolding. The layer and then
If
a new
you're
layer.
going to put something on your plate to always be doing for the rest of your life, it is to educate yourself.
100%.
Continue to grow. That's in your faith life,
Mm-hmm.
your married life, your relationship life with your kids, friends outside of that, church, your business, like all those things.
Absolutely. So one of the coolest things has been and this is why I encourage diligently thinking about and looking for opportunities to form business partnerships, but also being very aware of getting better at how and when and why you do it and ways to kind of beta test them without fully committing. So I had the blessing of Shane's knowledge as an entrepreneur for 20 years and the things that didn't go well.
Yeah.
And because when Nate, my other business partner, and I started our business, I got a lot of the things not to do from Shane.
The first part of that is you got to listen.
Right.
I mean, you receive information well. And I think we have to be to that point to where there's got to be people out there that we receive information well from.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's only a limited few, like we got some pride in us
No doubt.
as dudes. And you got to stop and say, okay, Brandon received that information well as I was going through some business struggles. As he comes into and we start partnering on things, I receive information well from him based on his level of expertise at things that I, to be honest, suck at. And so we have to find business partners and business relationships where we're giving information and we're receiving information well.
Yeah, when you get to experience that, and even if one doesn't go perfectly well, one of the most heartbreaking things I've heard in 5 years because our other business ties to a lot of business owners across all the U.S. and really outside the U.S. sometimes, is they're jaded from their one bad or two bad business experiences.
Yeah.
That they don't go seek it again. All that really is not having people around you and not being accountable to the person you see in the mirror.
Man, that's good. I think we could go down a whole nother show on that. I mean, even like a guy like Dave Ramsey says the only partnership that doesn't sell is a business, or the only ship that doesn't sell is a partnership.
That's right.
That is not true.
That's true.
And Jess White and I talked about that on the last episode of, man, business partnerships can be fantastic and can get you to places that you would have never gotten on your own. And you do have to be careful.
Yeah.
It's like a step below getting married to somebody in some instances.
It's barely a step below.
It's barely a step below. The only thing with marriage is that you're committed for life.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
with a business partnership, you don't have to be.
That's true.
There are exit strategies.
That's right.
There's not an exit strategy in marriage.
Yep.
I don't believe that. So
me too.
it's not all scary. You know, it's definitely a benefit if you're in business with the right people.
If you can clearly communicate what you do understand, which is going to change, and you can set it in the framework of this business partnership has the potential to do a lot of awesome things, but there's got to be an ability for all of us to know we don't know everything and to be willing to adjust when things go ways we weren't expecting and communicate as best as possible when they're going well or when they're not so we can refine it.
Yeah.
And give each other grace and leeway to change.
Yeah, because that's happening.
It happens that I'll give you a practical example. I thought I was the numbers guy who liked to do numbers. Mm-hmm. 5 years ago, I was, because it was the first taste I had of controlling my schedule as an entrepreneur.
Okay.
Because I had to for our business to succeed.
Yeah.
I'm not that great at it.
Okay.
Can I make it work? Yeah. Does it fill my cup now? No.
Yeah, you'll fall asleep if you got to work on numbers for an hour or two.
I'll do it, but so what does that look like? Well, first of all, you have to have a business that has enough money coming in that can hire somebody that it does fill their cup.
That's right.
Or create an automation, then an outsource.
Yeah, I think that's important to say. Is like if you're a new business owner, you really, it'd be great if you were a startup that got $1 million to start your company.
Yeah,
it'd be awesome, and then you can outsource those things you're not very good at or don't fill your cup. But a lot of small business owners, like service businesses and things like that, you're gonna have to learn how to do that stuff. At least learn how to do it so that you can build a company enough to outsource. And I think a lot of people get stuck in that circle of doing everything and they don't grow. So it's like a delicate balance.
Yeah, there's two things that jumped in my mind when you said that. There's a great book called E-Myth written by Michael Gerber, and he clearly helps you understand if you're a new business owner or you've been one for a while that you're typically a technician, a manager, or you're somebody who can really create businesses and thrive. So Shane's mentioning the technician, where I'm inside the business all the time. But let's go back to a little bit before that. I remember reading this, and it might have been an E-Myth. Shane mentioned being in your business. Here's the thing. You may not be great early on as a brand new entrepreneur with managing the money or invoicing clients or getting on sales calls, but you need to do it enough to know why you are or aren't good at it and lean into that imperfection so that you know what you're looking for when you have the ability to optimize, automate, and outsource it.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that,
somebody else is going to set the parameters for you, and they're probably not going to be what you actually want.
That's right. And it reminds me of this wonderful story about, I don't remember the spaceship, or Houston, we have a problem.
Apollo 13.
So the story goes that they'd spent millions of dollars getting this thing ready. They launch, and as we know the story, Houston, we have a problem. Supposedly, and you have to fact check me on this, they have an oxygen issue, and the engineers on the ground walk into a room full of the smartest people. Now, they spent millions of dollars getting this thing in there.
Yeah.
And he dumps a cardboard box of stuff on the table, and he says, this is what they have to solve this oxygen issue by this amount of time, or they die. And it's like nothing. It's like $100 worth of stuff.
That's crazy.
And they figure it out.
Nothing else in the world matters at this moment except figuring this one problem out.
So there we go back to the time envelope.
Yeah.
And how much time I have to solve a problem.
Yep.
And you also go back to money does not make you grow and scale always.
That's true. And, I don't want to paint the picture that you have to do everything. If people are willing to help you in those beginning, and really the only reason you're going to feel like you need to understand everything is because you don't have the money to pay other people to do it at that time.
Yeah.
But if people are willing to help you, accept their help, talk to other entrepreneurs. People are probably more willing to help than you think that they are willing to help.
I think you just made a great point there. I have found in 5 years of being connected to people that I can't believe I'm connected to.
Yeah.
So we have somebody that is a New York Times bestseller, Nate, my other business partner. We read all of his books. We loved his information. It's tied deeply into the concept we teach financially. If you'd have told me 5 years ago that I'd be sitting and shaking this guy's hand and picking his brain, and Nate and I can text him pretty much any time and he responds pretty quickly, I would have laughed in your face.
Yeah.
My point to that is his time's worth something. And Nate's about to go spend a day with him where, for lack of a better term, it's about to be very uncomfortable for all the right reasons.
Yeah, and here's a kicker there. You're probably paying a lot of money to do it.
I say this humbly. I'm not going to say them out. We're paying more money than I could have ever fathomed, and I can't wait to pay it.
For coaching and mentorship.
For a day.
For one day.
Now, we have access to him now, and he pours into us and responds.
Right.
But for this sole purpose is for... Now, I have one-to-one coaching going on right now.
Yeah.
And Shane, you know me. I come from the Dave Ramsey, pinch pennies, envelope, tight.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm paying this one-to-one coach monthly.
Yep. But Jess and I had this conversation about how much money he spends on education a year. Yeah. And for him, that number was about $2,000 a month. I think it's probably somewhere between $20,000 and $25,000 a year.
Yeah.
Including travel, getting to conferences, reading books, paying for coaching, things like that. But I guarantee you, like those things, some people will watch this and think, that's crazy. That's ridiculous.
I would have.
I would never do that.
Years ago.
Yeah, I probably would have too. And then if you're in the right mindset to understand that you need that, that you need to put yourself around people that are where you want to be, and that will get you where you want to be as long as you're moldable and coachable.
One of the most impactful books, and I don't necessarily agree with everything in it, but a book I read early on. So when I started my entrepreneurial journey, which was tied to a lot of other things, the first year I read over 60 books. That's not bragging, because now I would argue reading one book 5 times, as Alex Ramersey says, is sometimes more impactful than reading 60 books one time.
Yeah, it's like marketing. The same thing with marketing. You market in your market. If you say you're a service industry, it works better if you market to 1,000 people 10 times versus 10,000 people one time.
Going deeper more than wider.
Yeah.
But really honing in on why you're going deep there.
Yeah.
So I completely lost my train of thought on where we were going with that.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't either.
Alex Ramersey.
Yeah, it was basically just about, there's this big saying in the financial world of pay yourself first. Mm-hmm. So I read a book called Business Secrets from the Bible.
Oh, that's the one.
That's where I was going. And Business Secrets from the Bible had a statement in it I use often. It says, money is just one of the purest physical, tangible examples of our condition of our heart. Mm-hmm. So as an entrepreneur, if you're saying you want to get better, you're saying you want to grow, you're saying you want to thrive, the amount doesn't matter, because that's going to be proportionate to what you have available.
Yeah.
The fact that you're going to say, I'm going to slide this $500 over, I'm going to spend $100 on a hotel for the weekend, and I'm going to sit here and listen to somebody who's done more than me, and I'm going to prioritize that over everything else going on in my life, is the best first step in how we grow.
Yeah.
The information might have been awful.
Maybe.
You might have got one tidbit out of it.
Maybe.
It's the action of, am I putting my money where my mouth is?
Yeah, that's good.
And you and I run into this often. One of our hearts is to pour into people that are one step behind us.
Yeah.
But we have enough examples now in a short period of time of the separating fact. The people that succeed are doing a lot behind the scenes without our help. And they're just using us as a resource to tap into.
And they also invested in themselves in these projects that we're working on with.
Yeah, they're not depending on us to feed them everything and hold their hand.
Right.
They're communicating. They're taking the bull by the horn, so to speak. But they're making progress while we're not watching them.
What we have is a little bit more experience and a comfort level that they don't have at this moment.
That's right.
It.
That's it. And we've said this. You said this not long ago, and I loved it. We may only be a half a step ahead of them.
Maybe.
So what?
Yeah.
That they took the initiative to reach out and go, I know you know more than me, even if it's a half step. Can we do something together that benefits all of us?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So I want to touch on this, because here's a creative way to lean into somebody's knowledge that you don't have. You may have the money, they may have the knowledge. You may have the knowledge, they may have the money. Here's the thing. Don't argue over percentage points. Give it away to a certain degree to get the knowledge and the access to build a relationship. So what does that mean practically? I come to Shane. I know he's been killing it in short-term rentals, and I'm new. I go, Shane, I want to understand and learn this, but I am not sure how to make all this work.
Yeah.
So in my brain, traditionally, I want to have 55% because I brought the deal, and Shane says, no, my time's worth more than that.
Yeah.
But if I go to Shane and I go, what would it take for this to be worth it to you? Because you are taking on mentoring me. I'm going to bust my hump.
Yeah.
I'm going to handle it. And then Shane goes, I want you to handle this, 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 and this. I will be here as a resource, but you will be doing it because his time is valuable. And maybe Shane gets 60% of the deal.
Yeah.
Well,
sometimes it's likely, though, that if you go to somebody and be like, hey, man, I'm going to offer you as much value as I can offer you. And financially, too, I want you to win. Like, sometimes people may be like, man, I know that may take me 30 minutes a day to do that for you.
Yeah.
And so, maybe I just need 25%, or maybe I need 75%. But if you have a good relationship with somebody that understands what you're asking of them, I feel like they would be fair.
Well, here's the thing, too, that you have to ask yourself when you present that, because this is investing in yourself.
Yeah.
Would I rather have 0% of a deal that I wanted more percentage of that I didn't get? Or would I rather have less % of a deal with almost guaranteed future deals?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that's the reality.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for joining us today. I'm sure Brandon will be back on the show at some point. We'll let him read a few more books so he's a little bit smarter next time. But hit those buttons at the bottom, like, share, subscribe, help us reach more people. My ending on this is different. It's different from our other podcasts. If you never checked out The Uncomfortable Truth on YouTube, Apple, iTunes, Spotify, not iTunes, Apple Podcasts, it's 4 dudes being vulnerable for Jesus. Check that out. But the ending on that one is go kick the day in the face. This one is love God, love others, and let your work reflect that. We'll catch you on the next one.